I actually think Thanksgiving dinner can be done really in a pretty health-minded way if you guys implement some strategies to do that. The primary things that we have at Thanksgiving dinner, we can work around. So we've kind of want you to categorize this in two different ways. Quality, are there things that we can adjust to improve what we're putting into your body? And we've talked a lot about that in this class as far as trying to avoid processed things. So things like your rolls, I know cornbread was on here, things like that. If you make those from scratch, you're already better off because you know what's in them. Now, are they healthy? No, probably not in large quantity, but that brings us to the second piece, which is there's also foods that we have at the holidays that if you don't have at your meal, it doesn't feel like Thanksgiving anymore. And we're not asking you to do that. We just want you to be mindful that quantity also plays a role in this. You can still have things like mashed potatoes. You could still have your sweet potato casserole with the marshmallows and the brown sugar, but we want those to be condiments rather than the majority of your plate. So if we look at the big hitters at a Thanksgiving meal, turkey, how many of you guys have turkey? Not everybody does, but if you have turkey, to me, this is such a good opportunity for you to take advantage of something that is naturally very lean, very healthy, a really, really good protein source. Add that turkey onto your plate as much as you want. Now, what's some of the things that you hear about when you eat a lot of turkey? Tryptophan. Yeah, tryptophan. I love this. Oh my God, it's the turkey. I ate turkey and then by 6 o'clock, I wanted to take a nap. Do you guys think it's actually the turkey? No. It's all the rest of this stuff. So how many of you eat turkey other than at Thanksgiving? And do you have that same response where you want to sleep after you have it? Probably not. So don't blame that on the turkey is my point. I know. That is, it couldn't be the sugar with everything else I'm eating. So the point being, you guys, is this is an opportunity for you to take advantage of the fact that the prime suspect at our Thanksgiving dinner is actually a pretty healthy thing to eat. Some of the other things, mashed potatoes. This is one where the quantity might come in, and I get it. Mashed potatoes are one of those foods. What does Zoe Harcum call them? Moorish foods. That you can't, if you can't eat just a little bit of it, then know yourself that well and either omit that from your meal or come up with a strategy to implement better quality. What's a way that we could improve this dish that might make it a little bit healthier?
Maybe baked potato?
Could be a baked potato. You're still going to get potato, but it would limit maybe the quantity of it. Okay. What else? Have you guys ever had mashed cauliflower?
Cauliflower. Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so there you've taken away the starch, the carbohydrate content that you would have in mashed potatoes. You can still add all the great toppings on top of a mashed cauliflower, and it tastes amazing. I don't know if you guys have had that. Yeah. If you're like, heck no, mashed potatoes are my life, and it's like Christmas morning for me, then we go back here. Have it, just don't make that the majority of your plate. So if you guys can approach it that way, and I know a few of you have pulled us aside and asked Katie and I, like, what does your Thanksgiving dinner look like? For me, I love turkey, so great. I have turkey, not a problem. I make multiple kinds of vegetables, but be mindful of some of the things that are put in the holiday version of these vegetables. The green bean casserole, right, that we could modify back down. And again, I'll put it in the same category. If you love it and that's your thing, then you're going to have to adjust the quantity. But if you want to eat more of it, then you need to think about the quality. So maybe we take off the French fried onion rings. Just saying. I know. I've been the Grinch all morning. I'm going to continue it. Or the canned mushroom soup that goes in it, because you guys there's a lot of chemicals in that stuff that we don't need to eat. Right. So there are ways to make green beans taste amazing that maybe you're making them with bacon and other slivered almonds, whatever, that you can still have the green bean. It's not the green bean that's the culprit here.
Shaved Parmesan.
Shaved Parmesan. Oh my God, that's how I make my Brussels sprouts. I make it with pancetta and Parmesan cheese and then roast it. Holy cow, it's amazing. So be mindful sometimes that the glazed carrots, take off the glaze from the carrots, right? That's the added sugars that we don't need in the meal that honestly aren't going to make enough of a difference that we don't want you to feel like you're being neglected on your holiday meal, but we definitely want you guys just to make some simple changes. For us, it would be starting with the meat and the vegetables and eat that first. Why do you think I would say that to you guys? There you go. Well, there you go. So if you start your meal with the stuff that is going to put you on the right track, your tendency then, when you want to veer into these other areas, starts to decrease, okay? We talked earlier about this kind of stuff, your rolls and breads, things like that. Cornbread, yeah. Those, do you guys remember when we handed out the menus and talked a little bit about eating out and the difference between quality for food versus cheap food, filler food? Filler foods, you guys, are the rolls and the potatoes and things that fill you up and make you feel really full, but they don't stay with you very long. That's this category. So if we're changing that and eating all the good stuff first, you won't want as much of this, which is really going to kind of set you up for success with that stuff. How about this one? How many of you have cranberry with Thanksgiving? Okay, how many of you take the can opener and open the can of cranberry at Thanksgiving? Yeah, I mean, that's how I grew up too, right? Is there, you mean there's another kind of cranberry? Totally. Okay, so let's talk about that. What do you think most people actually like the cranberry? No. What are they after? Right. So be mindful of that. If you're opening a can of the cranberry, that's not, I mean, it has some cranberry in it, but the majority of that, it's like jelly, right? Where it's a sugar and a pectin and gelatin.
Cranberry flavored. Sugar.
It is cranberry flavored. So if you're going to have cranberries, have you guys ever had just a real cranberry?
Like, just popped one.
It's impossible to eat one.
Okay, well, impossible is a strong word, but it definitely doesn't taste like the canned stuff. So I would tell you this is one where most people would omit it if you're actually eating it the way it was intended to be eaten, which is the actual fruit of a cranberry. It's pretty bitter on its own, you guys, but you're definitely going to be decreasing the sugar content with that. One of the big things we want you guys to take away from this, holiday meals, there's traditions that go with that, and I understand that, and it's one meal. So if you want to go for it on that one meal and eat all the stuff that you have worked really hard up to this point to kind of take out of your diet, one meal ultimately, you guys, is not going to side rail you. What ends up happening on meals like this is that we make it in such quantity that now we have all of this stuff in our house for the next 6 days, and we're eating cheesecake for breakfast the next morning because it's there. So, or cranberries, cranberry jelly, whatever we want to call that. Yeah, right, totally. Okay, so know that that's going to happen if you have the kind of quantity of that in your house. That's where we start to get side railed, is when it, instead of one meal, turns into a week of meals, which starts what we call the holiday eating season. And people just continue that path through Christmas, because why wouldn't we? And then, hey, it's New Year's, so let's just keep going. And in January, I'll just start it all over again. You've side railed yourself now to the point where you're almost starting over. We were talking earlier about making this stuff in quantities where maybe you don't have that much left over, right? Or divvy it up when people leave where everyone takes a little bit so that tendency goes down. I've started making desserts in my house, and trust me, I've been telling these guys all morning, cheesecake's a big thing in my family. Everybody loves cheesecake for the holidays. But instead of making a cheesecake, now I make individual cheesecakes so that there's some portion control with that. And trust me, there's a little bit of psychological when you're like, well, I'm going up to get my third cheesecake. So there's judgment. I'm going to say that there's judgment there in my house. So if you want it that bad, great. But just understand that I do think it does eliminate some of that tendency to overeat, because there's a huge piece in front of you, so I may as well eat it. Those are the strategies we want you guys to implement.
You know, another thing we should add is my family always would make, the women would always make homemade noodles.
Yeah.
And that's gravy.
Yeah.
And the noodles.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it disgusted me.
Look at your
You
face
don't
when you're
look like
saying
you're
that.
excited about this. But it was a tradition,
Sure.
you know, and I mean, the whole family, even the grandkids, you know, they think, oh, who's making homemade noodles? Not me. Grandma's not going to make them.
And it's okay to change some of those, but I do think really what we want you guys to understand is we're not asking you to change your traditions. We're asking you just to think about strategies that aren't going to side rail everything you've done up to this point. So again, it's as simple as quality versus quantity, right? If we can make the adjustments to eating we've talked a lot in here about getting these foods in the least processed versions that you can. Well, then you don't have to worry so much about the quantity because the quality is better. But if there's foods that are part of that tradition that it's hard to do that with, then we adjust how much of it we're eating so that we can still have it and we still feel like it's the holiday meal that we have grown accustomed to.